Hello everybody and welcome to the Deep Rock Galactic class guide. Today, as you can see, we're going to be taking a look at the gunner. It's going to be the first class we take a look at in Deep Rock Galactic, followed by the three other classes in each separate videos after this one. So today we're just going to be taking a little overview of the gunner, reading up on him, giving you guys a general overview and, bio, I guess, on this guy, as well as going over some equipment, what's good, what's not good, what's used for what, everything like that. So that you get a general feel for the equipment and the class. See if it's something you'll like to commit a lot of time to, like to play. Without having to spend hours upon hours actually playing the class. Let's see it. Just maybe this will help you out. So yeah. This is the gunner base selection, class selection screen here. You can select any of the four classes on this screen in a little pod. Gunner here, as you can see, brings up your character. This isn't what your gunner is going to look like on a base level when you first start playing. Mine has been customized quite a bit over the, tens of hours, I've put into the guy. And then it gives you a little bio on him, as well as a video showing off some of his equipment and his general playstyle, which is fairly concise and gives a good overview and feel for the gunner, actually, through the video in the description. It's as a gunner, your position is at the forefront of any battle, cutting down aliens using your high caliber minigun and heavy duty revolver. You are also equipped with an extremely handy zipline launcher, allowing the entire team to easily get across almost any chasm or obstacle. So that's a bio in the video and the looks of the gunner there. And I'm going to be giving you a general overview and, I guess, guide to the gunner and what he's really used for as we transition over to the equipment part of the base here. So basically, as the gunner, as you'd expect, kind of just by reading the bio, looking at the name, seeing the guns and stuff he has access to. Your job is almost, to oversimplify it, I guess. Almost as like the sledgehammer, the gun, the bronze, whatever adjective you want to use, of the group. You're kind of the muscle of the group. You've got big guns. You've got powerful, fast-firing, whatever gun you use. You are very good at taking down, depending on the gun and setup you choose, taking down swarms of enemies rather efficiently and powerfully, or taking down big, highly armored, monsters like dreadnoughts, praetorians, oppressors with, highly damaging and armor-piercing rounds. Your job, first and foremost, to oversimplify it, is really as a gun. You use your, primary, secondary, your, grenades, to deal damage to the enemy. You're basically there as an upgraded gun from what the other three classes generally have. You provide an incredibly important, like almost fire support role. No one else in the game has the fire control, I guess to put it, that you have. No one else has a minigun, an autocannon, self-guided missile launcher. It's just, you have the capability, more so than others, to control crowds and punch holes through, powerful monsters and stuff with armor-piercing rounds and powerful rounds. You have the ability to control the game through, guns and protect yourself and your team and really cut a hole through the enemies in this game, more so than others do. I'm not saying they can't. They're all equipped with weaponry and everything. You just are kind of an upgraded. You kind of specialize, whereas other classes specialize in like drilling, mobility or engineer, setting up platforms and positions and gunner spots. You really specialize in on the weaponry part, whereas others, it just serves as a complement to their class. It's kind of the main focus of yours, wielding these powerful, fast-firing, devastating weapons. as well as on a secondary level as somewhat of a support player to the group, which is kind of true for every class as you'll see going forward. Everyone has kind of a support role to play for the most part. With your shield generator and your zipline launcher, it's pretty apparent where that's coming in, where you really have to help support and protect the group as well as provide a good amount of utility with your special unique equipment. So let's go over this equipment real quick. I'm not going to take up too much time describing it just because I don't want this video to be too long. Let's go over your primary weapons. So here's the Leadstorm powered minigun. This is the base gun you unlock with the gunner and what you'll be using first. As you can see, it's a big ass, handheld minigun. It won't look like this when you first get it. This is applied some camo and stuff to it. So it's a little upgraded, but still looks cool on a base level too. What is there to say about this weapon that you probably can't get just by looking at it, It's a minigun. It fires very quickly, puts a lot of bullets downrange, does a decent amount of damage and power. Yeah, it's perfect for crowd control and slaughtering a large amount of enemies very quickly. As well as it can be especially effective against larger targets. While not incredibly effective against them as, say, something like the autocannon, which we'll get to in a minute, it can still be somewhat effective against larger armored targets. If you hit them in the weak spot, you put a lot of bullets in there, more so than a lot of other classes can. I'd say the one drawback for the minigun is armor piercing potential. As we'll see in the autocannon, the rounds in the minigun don't generally hit as hard in general per round as something like an autocannon, and they don't really have as high armor piercing potential as something like the autocannon. So that's a drawback, but you trade off with that by getting faster rate of fire. You generally get more ammo, put more bullets down range. You still do a decent amount of damage. Can hold your own against armored targets, but have to be a little more careful about where you shoot, obviously, to get some damage done. And are better at crowd control and slaughtering a large amount of enemies rather quickly and efficiently. The gun also can't overheat, so you do have to watch with your spraying, especially when you don't have any gear modifications on it. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. But if you know what you're doing controlling the gun, it doesn't overheat that much, especially once you get some gear modifications on it to maybe limit the amount of overheating or how long you have to wait if it does. So yeah, that's the Leadstorm powered minigun. Next you got the Thunderhead heavy autocannon. Again, this has camo. This isn't what it looks like on a base level, but you get the gist, I'm sure. Yeah, again, pretty self-explanatory gun just by looking at it. It's a big ass double cannon, weapon, I guess. Basically, this gun obviously doesn't have the fire rate or spread and crowd control power of something like a minigun. As with just the two-barreled cannons, it has a much slower and deliberate rate of fire. Not saying you can't crowd control, as obviously the projectiles from the autocannon definitely pack a punch and can stop anything from a swarm rather quickly and efficiently. It's just not as efficient as something like a minigun. Also, with limited ammo and having to reload once your ammo magazine is out, it's often not incredibly wise to use a large amount of your ammo on something like swarms, which can often be dealt with by other teammates or your pickaxe or your secondary weapon. So those are the drawbacks of the autocannon. The pros, I'd say, are, again, kind of just the flip side of the cons. While a slower rate of fire and maybe not as good for crowd control, the balance it, obviously, the shots are much more powerful than that of a minigun. These hit a lot harder on a base level, as well as potentially, especially with gear modifications, but even without, have a lot more armor piercing potential. So especially for those big, enemies like dreadnoughts, oppressors, praetorians, heavy, big, high HP armored enemies, this is something where you're much more effective, even if you aren't shooting the vulnerable weak spots on the monsters. you're still punching through their armor and doing a large amount of damage. And I think that's where the autocannon really shines and finds its niche there, just like the other guns, is for armored targets and like big enemies, because these things, I mean, it's accurate. It hits like a truck. It pierces through armor if it needs to. Yeah, it's a hell of a gun. Definitely one of my favorites to use because I like running missions like dreadnoughts and stuff where on a base level you are going to be going up against those heavy, high HP armored targets. And obviously oppressors and Praetorians are everywhere. So yeah, very useful. Just a different, subset of what you might want to use it for primarily. Third weapon is the Hurricane guided rocket system. Again, not on base level. This is got some camouflage on it, but looks pretty similar. Again, fairly self-explanatory gun here. This is a rocket launcher with self-guided missiles. Yeah, I'd say this is probably my least favorite, personally, of the 3 weapons for primary you can choose. I just don't find it fills a niche that's very useful or something I often encounter. First of all, as you can see here, with the 9 missiles here, you don't have that much ammo or rounds per magazine, so you find yourself reloading quite a bit while using this. Also, you don't have that much ammo, especially compared to the other guns overall anyways. Yes, you might use this more deliberately and slower as the rate of fire than something like a minigun or even an autocannon, really. But you still have that limited ammo capacity per magazine and overall that I don't really care for. It's definitely something you can extend with gear modification, but even with gear modification, it still feels like you're kind of limited in what you can do ammo-wise. I don't think this is as good. I don't think this is as good potentially as the autocannon for killing those big high HP armored targets, because I don't think it hits as hard, and I don't think it doesn't hit as hard, and it also doesn't armor pierce nearly as good. As far as crowd control, I'd say it's competent to, if not a little better than the autocannon, but I don't think it's as good as the minigun, just because of the rounds you have available to you and the rate of fire differences. That being said, I think the guided rocket system is fairly competent and good at crowd control, just not as good. It does have splash damage and packs a decent punch per rocket on its own base. Has splash damage. You can put stuff on like poison or napalm to make some burn and stuff to add on to the crowd controller damage. But I don't think it goes that far of a way to make it a more viable or better option than the other 2 guns. Obviously, there are some self-guiding capabilities and stuff like smart missiles and stuff that are cool to play with and makes it a lot easier to aim and hit targets on a reliable basis where you're not really wasting many of the rounds. But I don't really think that makes up for anything, as I don't think it's particularly hard to aim with either of the other guns and hit your shots anyways. So yeah, I kind of think it's a lightweight, unless for some reason they've very recently updated it since the last time I've used it. So yeah, something cool to use, definitely a unique thing, and definitely recommend getting, but not something I frequently use. Let's go to secondaries here. Let's go to the Bulldog. So this is the primary secondary you're going to use when you first start playing the class, is the Bulldog Heavy Revolver. This has some skins as well as, the Waster like modification on it, so it's not what it looks like on a base level. I guess I can take it off if you want to see it. But yeah, it's a revolver. It packs a mean punch. Does a lot of damage per shot, especially compared to the burst fire gun counterpart. Hits hard, has good armor piercing potential as well if you need to use it for that. So yeah, that's the pros, I'd say. The cons, obviously slower rate of fire, magazine capacity. As a revolver, it can't carry as many rounds as the burst fire weapon, but it does more damage to counteract that, as well as armor piercing. slower reload kind of, as well as overall I believe it has less ammo. If max ammo, yeah, okay, it does. But again, higher damage and armor piercing makes it so you might not need as many bullets in the first place. This is my go-to secondary for any of the guns or sets I'm running. I like the power and armor piercing potential it brings, and I'm okay with the less ammo because I know I won't need as many bullets, and I believe the extra power really sets it apart because I like having the extra power and stopping power in my back pocket so that when I shoot at stuff in the last desperate situation, I know it's probably going to go down within a round or two, unless it's big, oppressor, or dreadnought, or whatever, Praetorian even. So yeah, that's a Bulldog. The BR T7 burst fire gun pistol, obviously with some camo, not base skin. Yeah, this is kind of the reverse, I guess, of the secondary weapons available. It's a burst fire pistol. Kind of the opposite of a revolver, I guess, in some sense. Yeah, so the pros, obviously much higher rate of fire. It's a burst. You're putting a lot of bullets down range. You have a higher magazine capacity. You have a higher max ammo capacity. So yeah, that's I'd say the pros. The cons, you're not doing as much damage per shots or per burst, I guess, as you would with a bullet or two from the revolver. You don't have as good armor piercing potential per shot. You don't do as much damage overall, so while you have more ammo, you're going to be expending more ammo to do the same result in the damage overall in general. So yeah, that's what I'd say are the negatives of the BR T7 burst fire gun. Again, I prefer the Bulldog for its stopping power and armor piercing capabilities, and I accept the lower magazine and overall ammo capacity. Minor, you got your pickaxe and flare, pretty standard, as well as your armor rig. Let's go to the shield generator, unique piece of equipment for the gunner. That's what it looks like. Shield generator is a pretty useful gadget you have available to you with the gunner toolkit. Basically what it does is you use this, throw it on the ground, and it forms 2.8 radius, I guess it's feet or meters, radius, like dome force field around you and whoever else is in there. And basically what this force field does is it doesn't allow bugs or, enemies to enter that force field. So while you and your allies are in there, you are basically impervious to getting attacked by any enemy. This is from the smallest spider all the way up to a dreadnought cannot enter this force field and do you any harm while you are in it. So it's good for protecting yourself when you're getting swarmed and stuff and have no other recourse to survive but using one of this, as well as serves as a secondary capacity of protecting you and your teammate while in a similar situation, as well as what I find myself using it for most often really is throwing it on a downed friend's body so that I can revive them without fear of me or him getting attacked while doing so. Next is the Zipline Launcher, your second unique equipment piece of the gunner toolkit. This is what it looks like. So basically, name I guess sums it up pretty well. This is a tool that shoots zip lines out of it. Shoots up to about 40 meters or less for a range. You can carry 3 zip lines in it per, max ammo reload. And obviously can be restocked just like every other gun. And yeah, basically use this to shoot zip lines. This is particularly useful for traveling to places that otherwise are not reachable or very difficult to reach. Stuff like, rooftops or I guess cave tops, especially if you don't have a scout for this, as well as the cliffs and stuff hanging off the walls and the roofs, the sides of caves that you either have to have a scout to zipline up to, or have a driller kind of mine a really long pathway up to it, as well as if there's like a chasm or a ravine separating parts of the map, you can zipline over it to provide easy and quick access from one side to another. Very useful utility to get around places that are otherwise very annoying to get around. It can also be used to protect or kind of set up like an area for combat. You can shoot this up on high places like walls and roofs and cliffs, and set up like a steep zip line. This makes it so it's harder for the enemies to reach you and do damage while you're traveling on the zip line while fighting them. They have to climb on the walls and stuff and the roofs to come get you, and that takes time you can use shooting them. And when they do get up there, you can just simply slide down back the zip line from where you came at a fast rate of travel and avoid them, and then repeat the process. Not an official use, obviously, but something very nifty and cool little adaptation of the weapon that I like to use. Last part here is the grenades you have access to. First one being the sticky grenade. Pretty straightforward here. You can carry 6 of these, does about 130 area damage, has a 4 meter radius, and yeah, it's a grenade. It's a single grenade, packs a good punch, can kill a lot of grunts and base stuff. Obviously sticks to whatever surface or enemy you throw it at and hit, and then goes off a few seconds after that. Has a decent radius, has pretty high damage. Get a large amount of these. It obviously sticks to targets, so precision, and make sure you hit what you want to hit. Yeah, fairly useful, cool little grenade to have. Although not something I carry very often, as we'll get to, I mainly only carry cluster grenades. Next is your incendiary grenades. Obviously this is like a stick incendiary grenade, as you can see here. You carry 4 of these, has an effect radius of about 4.3 meters, and a duration for like the fire and burning of about 6 seconds. So basically you throw one of these at your enemies or an area, lights that on fire with a radius about 4.3 meters. That fire and the burn effect lasts for about 6 seconds on the enemies that get affected by it and hit by it. This is good for crowd control, damage over time, denying an area to enemies as they can't get through without taking burn damage. So yeah, good for those rules. As far as direct damage, it's obviously not comparable to the grenade, as it does damage over time, and it doesn't do direct explosion damage nearly like the sticker grenade does. Last, and probably my favorite here, is the cluster grenades. As you can see, it's basically a stick grenades with a lot of like mini grenades attached to it that become detached and explode on their own in like a dome shape once you throw the grenade. You can carry 4 of these, has 9 bomblets that come off of and explode. The area damage is 40, got an effect radius of about 3.8 meters, and a stun chance of about 50% with a duration of 1.5 seconds. So yeah, when you throw this, the 9 bomblets all split apart in like a dome shape and explode on their own after a second. This is great for crowd control over a large area. These bombs, can cover a lot of ground and hit a lot of targets and do a fair amount of damage. This can, basically wipe out an entire area of a horde, most of a horde with just 1 or 2 grenades. So it's great for crowd and swarm control. Obviously not as effective on big targets or armor targets as something like a sticky grenade would be, for instance, but amazing for crowd control. So yeah, that's why I like using it. Also packs a good punch and also has a stun chance, which is always nice to have on your enemies that aren't killed by this thing, so you can deal with them more effectively. So yeah, drawbacks, obviously not as big of a punch on a grenade, single object or enemy level as something like a sticky grenade, but trades it for more area of effect damage. Something drawback for the cluster grenade and the incendiary grenade, as well as I guess the sticky grenade, but not as big of a deal, is there's friendly fire in this game, and it's very easy to hit people with these incendiary or cluster grenades that cover a wide range of the map, and can explode and have a large radius of effect. it's very easy to hit your friend, so just look out for that when you're throwing. It's something to keep in mind when you're using those 2 grenades. So yeah, that is a general overview of the Gunner class in Deep Rock Galactic. I'll be back at it next time with the next class overview. I hope you guys enjoyed this class overview of the Gunner, and if you did, like, subscribe, comment down below where you got any tips and tricks and nifty stuff you've picked up about using the Gunner that I didn't mention here, any thoughts, and yeah, see you guys in the next video.